The South China Sea is a vital waterway, stretching over 3.5 million square kilometers, and is one of the most strategically important bodies of water on the planet. Its deep blue expanse is not just a scenic marvel, it is a lifeline for nations, a crossroads where history, commerce, and geopolitics collide. Beneath its shimmering surface lies a wealth of natural resources, from rich fisheries that feed millions to vast reserves of oil and natural gas that fuel economies. Every day, thousands of ships traverse these waters, carrying goods that connect Asia to the rest of the world. The South China Sea is a superhighway for global trade, with nearly a third of all maritime commerce passing through its busy lanes. The economic pulse of the region, and indeed the world, depends on the safe passage of these vessels. But for generations of Filipino fishermen, the South China Sea is more than a trade route, it is home. Scarborough Shoal, just 150 miles from Luzon, has been a sanctuary and a source of identity. Here, fathers teach sons the art of fishing, and entire communities depend on the bounty of the sea for their daily bread. The rhythms of life are tied to the tides and the promise of each new dawn. Yet this small chain of reefs, seemingly insignificant on a map, has become a flashpoint in a high-stakes geopolitical contest. Both the Philippines and China lay claim to these waters, transforming a traditional fishing ground into a contested frontier. At the heart of the dispute is China's sweeping 9-dash line, a claim that stretches deep into the South China Sea and encompasses Scarborough Shoal. This assertion, rejected by international law and a 2016 tribunal ruling, has placed the shoal at the center of a regional power struggle, pitting national pride against global norms. Filipino fishermen who once found sanctuary in these waters now face intimidation and danger. Their small wooden boats are dwarfed by larger, more imposing vessels. Encounters that were once friendly have turned tense, and the simple act of casting a net has become fraught with risk. China's presence is constant and unmistakable. Coast Guard ships and maritime militia patrol the shoal, enforcing a new reality. What was once a peaceful fishing ground is now a zone of confrontation where livelihoods and national interests collide. Scarborough Shoal is more than a dot on a map, it is a symbol of sovereignty, survival, and the enduring spirit of those who call these waters home. For the Philippines, it represents a fight for dignity and the right to exist in their own backyard. In September 2025, this simmering conflict erupted into a full-blown crisis, drawing the world's attention. Headlines blared and the eyes of the international community turned to this modern David and Goliath struggle, where the balance of power in Asia hung in the balance. The fate of Scarborough Shoal is more than a local dispute, it could shape the future of the entire region. The outcome will influence not just borders but the rules that govern the world's oceans and the rights of small nations to stand up to giants. As tensions mount, the world is about to witness a small nation's courage in the face of overwhelming force, a test of resolve, and a defining moment for the South China Sea. Amid rising tension in the West Philippine Sea, the Philippines launched the Katawa mission, a lifeline for fishermen who have long faced harassment and intimidation from Chinese vessels patrolling the contested waters. For months, Filipino fishermen have struggled to make a living, their access to traditional fishing grounds blocked or threatened. The Katawa mission was a bold response, a message that the nation would not abandon its people at sea. At the heart of this mission was the BRP Datu Gumbi Piang, a lone but resolute Coast Guard ship. It led a small convoy of 10 support boats, each one carrying vital supplies and hope, as they ventured into waters claimed by both China and the Philippines. The fleet's departure was watched anxiously by families and officials alike, aware of the risks that lay ahead. The mission's goal was twofold: to deliver food, fuel, and other essentials to Filipino fishermen, and to send a clear signal that the government stands firmly with its citizens, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Every member of the crew understood the gravity of their task. Their journey would not only test their seamanship, but also challenge China's growing dominance in the region. The tension was palpable as they prepared for possible encounters with Chinese patrols. Yet, a sense of duty and unyielding resolve propelled them forward. They knew that their actions could inspire hope and courage far beyond the ship's deck. As the BRP Datu Gumbi Piang drew closer to Scarborough Shoal, it became a beacon of hope for Filipino fishermen who had grown accustomed to isolation and fear. The sight of the Philippine flag approaching was a powerful reminder that they were not forgotten. But the mission was about more than just delivering food and fuel. It was a stand for sovereignty, a declaration that the Philippines would assert its rights guaranteed by international law, no matter the odds. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Datu Gumbipiang pressed on, embodying the spirit of defiance and resilience. Its presence in these contested waters was a statement: the Philippines would not be intimidated. For the fishermen, the Coast Guard's arrival was more than just a delivery. It was reassurance that they were not alone in their struggle. It was a promise that their government would stand by them, even in the most dangerous of times. As the ships drew closer to Chinese patrols, the stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only the courage of the crew, but the resolve of an entire nation determined to defend its rights and its people. As the Philippine vessel neared Scarborough Shoal, the horizon transformed into a wall of white hulls. Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia ships, their paint gleaming in the sun, clustered together in a formidable display of power. The sea, once open and free, now felt like a narrow corridor hemmed in by foreign vessels, each one a silent warning. Up to 22 Chinese vessels formed a blockade, their bows pointed outward like a shield, enforcing Beijing's sweeping claim over these contested waters. The message was unmistakable: no one would pass without their consent. The blockade was not just a show of force, it was a calculated move to intimidate, to remind all challengers of who controlled the sea. Suddenly, a Chinese militia ship broke formation and surged forward, aggressively cutting across the BRP Datu Gumbipiang's path. The Philippine crew was forced into a sharp evasive maneuver, narrowly avoiding a collision. The tension on deck was palpable, every sailor alert to the possibility of escalation. The situation escalated further, as a Chinese Navy frigate broadcast a chilling announcement: live fire exercises would begin nearby. The threat was clear and unmistakable, a warning to stay away or risk becoming a target. Panic rippled through the ranks of Filipino fishermen working nearby. Many had come to these waters for their daily catch. But now, fear gripped them. The thought of being caught in the crossfire, or worse, detained by foreign forces, sent them scrambling to leave the area. The Philippine ship was soon surrounded, dwarfed by the sheer number and size of the Chinese vessels. Outnumbered and outgunned, the crew found themselves shadowed at every turn, their every move watched by powerful adversaries. The Chinese presence was relentless, a constant looming threat that pressed in from all sides. Every maneuver by the Philippine ship was mirrored, every attempt to communicate met with silence or stern warnings. Yet, the Philippine crew stood firm. Despite the overwhelming odds, they held their course, determined to fulfill their mission and assert their nation's rights. Their resolve was tested, but not broken. The confrontation was no longer a distant possibility or a diplomatic talking point. It was unfolding in real time, with the world's eyes fixed on the tense standoff. News outlets around the globe broadcast images of a single Philippine ship facing down an entire fleet, a stark symbol of defiance and vulnerability. International observers watched, aware that the outcome here could ripple far beyond these waters. What began as a peaceful mission was now a high-stakes standoff, met with overwhelming force. The world held its breath as the balance of power in the South China Sea hung in the balance. Suddenly, two China Coast Guard ships closed in and unleashed powerful water cannons on the BRP Datu Gumbipiang. The blasts battered the ship, targeting its bridge and superstructure, shaking the crew and drenching the decks. A direct hit shattered a bridge window, sending glass flying and injuring a Filipino sailor. It was the first reported injury since a previous clash in 2024, a dangerous escalation. The attack was calculated, aiming to disable the ship and break the crew's will. Amid chaos, the crew tended to their wounded and maneuvered to avoid further damage. The water cannons roared, but the crew's discipline held. The violence was a stark message: leave, or face worse. Yet, the Philippine sailors refused to yield. The shattered glass symbolized the violence, but not defeat. Their mission and their resolve remained unbroken. The water cannon assault left the BRP Datu Gumbipiang battered. Windows shattered, equipment ruined, the captain's cabin damaged. 5 air conditioning units were destroyed, making conditions harsh in the tropical heat. The attack was targeted, aiming to cripple the ship's operations and force a retreat, but the crew's spirit was unbroken. They cleared debris, made emergency repairs, and ensured the ship stayed seaworthy. There was no talk of turning back. Their determination was a quiet act of defiance. The wounded ship pressed on, its crew hardened by adversity. The physical damage was a reminder of the risks, but also of their resolve. The mission to support fellow Filipinos mattered more than ever. The BRP Datu Gumbi Piang was down, but not out. Despite the attack, the BRP Datu Gumbi Piang did not retreat. After tending to the injured and assessing damage, the captain ordered the mission to continue. The ship rejoined its flotilla, determined to deliver supplies to the waiting fishermen. Their defiance sent a clear message: the Philippines would not be bullied out of its own waters. The battered vessel became a symbol of resilience and courage. The Chinese ships remained a threat, but the mission pressed on. Supplies reached the fishermen, fulfilling the Katawa mission's purpose. It was a victory of spirit over force. The Philippine flag still flew in the West Philippine Sea. Against overwhelming odds, the crew accomplished their objective. After the clash, the battle shifted to the airwaves. China accused the Philippines of illegal entry and even ramming a Chinese ship, claims Manila flatly denied. The Philippines countered with video evidence of the water cannon attack and the injury. This was more than a war of words, it was a fight for the truth. China's disinformation aimed to confuse and justify its actions. The Philippines responded with transparency, embedding journalists and releasing real-time footage. The world could see the reality for itself. The struggle was now as much about narrative as it was about territory. The world took notice. The US and other allies condemned China's aggression and reaffirmed support for the Philippines. The attack was seen as a challenge to international law and the rules-based order. The timing was significant, coming after joint military drills and China's moves to tighten control over the shoal. Global condemnation isolated China diplomatically and strengthened the Philippines' position. For a smaller nation, international support was crucial. The incident underscored the stakes in the South China Sea. The world saw a clear case of a bully menacing its neighbor. The Scarborough Shoal standoff became a defining moment for the Philippines. It hardened national resolve and fueled calls for military modernization. The image of the wounded but defiant BRP Datu Gumbi Piang became a rallying cry. For fishermen, the mission brought hope, but the threat remains. Regionally, the incident was a wake-up call, pushing Southeast Asian nations to strengthen security ties. The revival of Subic Bay as a strategic hub is a direct response to China's aggression. The confrontation raised the risk of escalation. A single injury could spark a wider conflict. The standoff was a microcosm of the global contest between law and force. The future of the Indo-Pacific may depend on the lessons learned from this act of courage. In the waters of the West Philippine Sea, the fight for sovereignty continues.